Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to The Solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. We're the Prevention Resource Center in New York City, and we are so excited to be here. It's been way too long. We don't know when you're listening, but whenever you are, we're happy to have you here. And welcome back to us, to you, and to everybody else. Hey, Chevar.
Hey, Ronnie. It's been a while. We
It's been
see
too
each other
long.
every day, but we haven't seen each other in this format in such a long time. I missed the train that's about to hit us in the back. I'm excited for this new season of conversation we're gonna have. We have a lot of guests from different walks of life, and I'm even excited about doing another host to host. Can't wait to do another one of those. Those are one of my favorites.
Oh, I love doing those. And what's interesting is Shavar and I know each other really well. I mean, we've been working together a while, and we've got a relationship that goes beyond colleagues. We're family, and but the host
Absolutely.
to host lets us know more about each other, and it's just so
Mhm.
much fun. It's very exciting to do it. But and that train in back of us, I'm so excited. I've been taking it more often again. Not Okay, I'm not excited to be on the subway necessarily, but it's funny. A few weeks ago I was on the subway, and all of a sudden I look around and the three going up to Harlem, and I see I'm the only person on this train. Why am I the only person in this car? And I think to myself, well, I'm a New Yorker, and I know one thing: never allow yourself to be the only person on the subway car.
Exactly.
So I just like walked to the doorway. I wasn't going to go between the cars, and I looked across. I saw more people there. I said, as soon as this train stops, I am going to go so fast and get the hell out of here and go to the next car. And that's what I did. And people who aren't used to riding subways in New York might be like, "Oh, this is great. I got the car to myself."
There's
When
a
you're a New
reason for
Yorker, you know you never stay that way.
it.
Anyway.
There's a bunch of reasons. The AC doesn't work. It smells. There's a reason why you shouldn't be. There's a reason why. So like Ronnie's
Always.
right. Like you just get up and go. Unless it's 3 o'clock in the morning, then that's the reason why the train might be empty. But rush hour during the day or late evening, early morning, nah, get out of that car.
Never, 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 never.
Get out of that car. Out of that car. But I'm excited, man. The sun is beaming on my face. The spring is here.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I know I'm not going to moan and groan. I like spring. Spring, even with allergies, I really like spring. But I don't like the heat. But what it is, what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, hey, we can't win them all. We can
That's
win
right.
some of them. We can win some of them, but we can't win all of them. And that's something that I think a lot of us in life have to learn and accept. You can win some of them. You're not going to lose all of them. You're not going to win all of them. But
Right.
when you do win, you embrace it. And if you do, I don't like saying the word lose. When you run into a challenge, you learn from
That's a good one.
it.
I learned years ago from my first sponsor when I got into recovery. She said to me, and I think I've said this here before, all you can do on any given day is bring the best you to the table, and it'll be enough. And
Yeah.
that's like my mantra. If I'm having a challenging day and I'm getting down on myself, I stop and say, no, no, this is the best you got today. You're giving it your all. You are enough. And it always helps me to remember that. Doing the best I can do.
One thing I do want to mention for the listeners and the viewers, we live in New York. Ronnie's on Long Island. I'm in the city, and you may hear a lot of noise in the background, and that's the perfect reason for why we have that background of the train. It's New York. You're going to hear all types of sounds in our podcast, whether it's babies crying, dogs barking, trains going by, ambulances, buses, people yelling. This is New York, man, and we love it. It's New York. I wouldn't change it, man. I remember I was younger and my super side story. My uncle they moved to Pennsylvania, to Milford to be exact. And I
Oh,
remember
no.
when we're going there, and it's dark. When it's nighttime, it's nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dark, and there's nothing around. It was so quiet. I couldn't sleep because it was so quiet.
Uh,
It was like it was freaking me. I was now I'm older. I can appreciate it, but younger I was like where is everything? It was different for me. You know, it was a culture shock for me, and like it's not having the noise of the trains and the people. Like I said, the babies and the dogs. Please, the fire department, all these noise to help soothe me to put me to bed. Like it was like nothing. And
It's
just
what we're used to. When we moved to New York, back to New York, we had been living in Maine and we met in Tennessee, and I remember my wife was like, "It's so noisy here." I'm like, "It is," and and we were, we weren't in a noisy neighborhood, but I said, "Well, I lived in places that were like right on the LIE, and then above me was the flight path, and then above the other part of the highway was the railroad, and so I or the subway. I would hear all three of those at once, and never had trouble sleeping because you get used to it. We adapt. Isn't that what life is
absolutely,
about, adapting? But we usually don't talk about what we're going to talk about till
yeah.
the people get here, but we're doing a really important series of
Hmm.
podcasts over the next few weeks, and we really
Hmm.
hope that all of you listening or watching will take these podcasts and spread them around,
Hmm.
because there's some real imminent dangers out there among people who are using, and we're doing these podcasts because we need to get the word out, and we've brought in some experts who can help us with that. Um, Please share these podcasts widely. It's part of prevention too. We want people to know what's going on, and also we want to be there to support the families of people and young people, and help them not go down that path. So, in a little while, you're going to meet some very, very special people we've been talking with and meeting with, and we're just so excited they're going to be here today.
Yeah, like Ryan said, this information has to be shared. And apologize for the change in my tone, but I was also excited to have this conversation because, like Ronnie said, like and we talk about this in previous podcasts. These are people. And I don't mean to say the word these, but we're all people. We're all humans, and people are affected in different ways, and people have reasons for why, or circumstances for why their lives went into a certain direction, and we can't escape the fact or throw or discount the fact that they're still human. Man. Like everyone here is human. Like and when we met and we met with Jessica Borland, she was on our podcast before, I believe,
Mhm.
and we spoke about this, and I was like, "Is this a one off, Marani?" I was like, "Can we?" I got it because I just saw all of this wealth of information, and I saw a video, and they're gonna talk about it more because, like Ronnie said, they're the experts. But I was like, wow, this is what's going on. This is where the world is going, and like, how can we support or help uh, get information out, and warn people about the effects of. But again, like we need the experts. We need people who've been there, who are in the trenches, who are on the front lines, who's having a conversation, who has the data, who has the research, who has that. Because like me seeing a documentary or watching a PowerPoint is one thing, but actually being there. And I mean, I
Yeah.
got excited. Ronnie also got excited.
Well, and then we were asked to do this too, which was really nice. So I'm thinking, we've talked about it, and why not just get right
Yeah.
to it and let's invite our guests in. They've been at the door for a while. For once, we didn't have Chevar have to stop talking because they came to the door, but we're gonna let them in. Okay, and our guests are arriving, and we're really glad to see them. We'll give you a minute to come on camera, and we're happy to see you. And just by the way, I do want to mention that since to our listeners and our viewing audience, that as Chevar mentioned, we're in the New York area, so we're going to have interruptions. And many of you also know I have a puppy, and she may start screaming. So if you hear that in the background and I disappear for a little bit, we want you to keep on talking. Well, welcome. We're so glad to see you. Our guests are here. We're sorry to make you wait in the waiting room. We wanted to give you a proper introduction, but we'd like to start. We'd like you to introduce yourselves, though, and tell us what you do. So, who'd like to start?
I'll start. Hi, my name is Tiffany Lacen. I'm a peer advocate at Samaritan Daytop Village in the Bronx. I've been a peer for 2 years.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. My name is Bob.Dicristi. I'm also a CRPA, Certified Peer Advocate. I worked for Jamaica Outpatient with Samaritan Village. I was a paramedic for 20 years prior to this.
Wow. Thank you also. And Joel, that leaves you.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Joe, can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are quickly and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Joel Teron. I'm Harm Reduction Manager at Alliance for Positive Change, Lower East Side Harm Reduction Center.
Oh, great. Thank you, everybody. We're so glad you're here. And, you know, we were just saying how excited we are to do the series of podcasts. And we're going to dive right in because we want to give you a chance to talk about the stuff that's important to you. But I know that this first podcast was going to be an introduction to talking about, you know, something that's been plaguing people out there lately. And it's been around for a while. The warnings were there, but now it's here. And, you know, we want to make this kind of a 101 intro for people who know nothing about the drug we're talking about and its effects. So what would you tell someone about xylazine who knows nothing a little about it? And you know, each of you take your turns and talk and say what you'd like to say. Don't be shy.
Yeah, you guys look afraid to talk.
All right, so I can start.
Okay, thank you.
So every Friday, me and a couple of people go out to outreach on 149th and 3rd Avenue. We're like in the middle, the pit of the Bronx where it's all going down. We had taken Chris Courtlandt on a walk through, and he's seen how, you know, the people are living, how they're living out of boxes, how they're just lined up. They don't care what time of the day it is. They are using, they are shooting. It was an instant where we went out early because we go at about 8 o'clock in the morning. And we did the outreach, and there was a gentleman who was continuing to use, and he had a needle in his foot out in the open. And his toe was actually falling off. So he never really wore a sneaker on that foot. So we would constantly outreach him. At first, he was just like, he didn't want to be bothered. And eventually, you know, we got him some wound care kits, you know, and then one of the Fridays we went out there, his foot actually gotten better. It's gotten better. He's actually, it has it wrapped. He's actually able to put on a pair of sneakers today. So, you know, we go out there, we try to give them the knowledge, spread the knowledge about what xylazine is, which is a non-opioid tranquilizer that only the vets can get access to. It's not for use of human consumption or human use. Is linked to overdose, which can be life-threatening. It can be mixed with the fentanyl. It has been mixed with the fentanyl. It can be mixed with heroin. It can be mixed with cocaine. And it, like, the symptoms are insane. You know, they give you holes in your body that causes a crusty skin, like ulcers with a crusty skin that doesn't heal, which can lead to amputation, which can lead to death. And what I'm starting to see, it's like, how could I say, and I don't even mean to be funny, it's like Night of the Living Dead in person. Because what it shows is that these people, okay, they're homeless in the street. They have these wounds that are just growing and growing. They're not taking care of themselves, so how are they supposed to take care of these wounds? So now we have people with open wounds in the street where kids are walking by, you know, people who have low immune systems are walking by that can easily, you know, not saying that they can be passed around, but you don't know what type of infections that they have. So we're trying to really expose this xylazine, because how are they getting it if only vets can get it? I actually did was looking on Google the other day just to see if they selling it online, which they are for $30, but you have to have a prescription. And if this drug is only given by, is only vets are only able to get them, how are they coming into our communities? How are
Now,
they getting mixed with these drugs?
now, for people who are just hearing this for the first time, and they hear about a vet, what is this normally used for?
Large animals like elephants, horses. There's a tranquilizer for horses, and like really large animals. And like the symptoms, if the symptoms are insane, like you have difficulty breathing, dangerous low blood pressure, slow heart rate, infected wounds, it causes drowsiness, which can, ultimately lead to death, and they mix it with heroin, cocaine, fentanyl. It's a central nervous system sedative, and it's referred to as the zombie drug. And it's new. It might be pretty new to a lot of our ears now, but this drug has been out for over 5 years. In Puerto Rico, they ask you if you want it with or without.
It's actually longer than 5 years. I'll go into a little bit more detail. Because I dug really deep into this. This came out around 2000s, 2001 in Puerto Rico. There was a huge outbreak of it in 2001. In 2003, the Puerto Rican government cracked down on it. And in 2005, they reduced the amount that was available by like 3/4, but it was still available on the black market and things like that. So what's happening up here is it's being diverted from vets. So like when you see illegal cigarettes and things like that, you'll have, it's being shipped on trucks and you'll have gangs take the trucks and now they're diverting it to the drug dealers instead, So that's the way it's getting into the supply, I mean, who knows? You could even have a shady vet, writing false prescriptions. I mean, who knows? How's fentanyl getting into the country? How's cocaine getting into the country? It's all the same thing. But xylazine is worse than everything because of the reaction that it has on the human body. It is a tranquilizer. It's a veterinary tranquilizer used for like you said, large animals, horses, cows, elephants, things like that. But when it enters the human body, what happens is at the capillary level, at the very ends of your blood vessels, it constricts them so that those cells at the end of those capillaries are getting no blood flow. So now anytime you have even a small wound anywhere on your body, your capillaries are restricted. It's restricting the blood flow to those wounds, and now your body can't heal itself. Now you get an infection. Now you get an abscess. With continued use, more constriction of the blood vessels, more lack of oxygen, lack of blood to the blood flow to the wound, bigger wound. And this is what's happening over and over again. The biggest problem is that people here don't even know it's in the supply. In Pennsylvania, the epicenter of the United States for the xylazine epidemic, street drugs, 90% of all street drugs has some sort of xylazine in it. 90%. We're talking cocaine, marijuana, LSD, ecstasy, everything. There's no heroin anymore anyway. It's all fentanyl, so you can't. But every single street drug now has some sort of xylazine in it. And like you said, people are, when they find out it's in there, some people actually want it because it extends the feeling.
Right.
I was a heroin addict, and fentanyl addict, Fentanyl only lasts a few hours. With the xylazine, it makes it last 8-9 hours, or it feels like it lasts that long. And the other problem with it is, on our front now, Narcan does not affect it. So you have a person that overdoses, our first reaction is to give them Narcan. You give them Narcan once, give them Narcan twice, they're still not waking up because the xylazine is a central nervous depressant. So they're not breathing, their heart rate's low, so now we have to resort to mouth,
Short breaths.
exactly. And that's the problem. 9%, I believe the CDC just let out, 2 years ago, 2% of all overdose deaths were contributed to xylazine. This year so far, 9%. That's a huge jump in 2 years. It's a huge jump, and it's just gonna get worse.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think for when like it really comes down to like educating people, and because like they don't know what's in their supply. For most people, they're using and they don't care what's in their supply. But the reason that this is so important, and like that these like educational moments need to be happening, is because with the presence of xylazine, you're after consuming it, it's no longer a factor of knowing or not knowing. You're gonna be affected by it, So when we talk about like having harm reduction education sessions with participants and just educating people on like, the different things that could happen to them, or just about the different resources that are available. We talk about wound care, and we talk about like distributing wound kits anytime we're doing outreach, but making sure people have the correct supplies. With xylazine wounds, you're gonna want to avoid alcohol, and you're gonna want to avoid hydrogen peroxide. So your best friends are gonna be like the benzo wipes or like antiseptic wipes, things like that. You're gonna want saline water, A&D ointments to keep the area hydrated. So especially with the xylazine wounds, the huge aspect is keeping the area hydrated, to avoid any further infection. But there's different signs of when a medical provider should be sought, or when you should go like to an urgent care or even the ER for wound care. But like something we always educate our participants when doing outreach, if you're contemplating whether you're on that line of whether it needs medical attention or not, rule of thumb is just get the medical attention. Like just go get the assistance, get the guidance. It's better to have caught it early than to have caught at a point where the only option now is to be like to have something amputated, or like things like that. And when we talk about just like the differences of like the different options and resources that people can have, we understand that people might be either using alone or might be using away from people, but this is one of those instances where we're going to encourage people to reach out to other resources. You have agencies out there like Never Use Alone, the Brave app. These are all like individual platforms that you could let them know the substances you're using, where you are, what kind of like response team you are comfortable with or feel comfortable with. And once they don't get a response from the individual, they send out that response team, whether it's 911, someone close by, a phone number you give them, so it avoids the person literally using alone. So like these resources are out there. It's just about getting the knowledge and the education to the people that need it the most. And we talk about like just like access to care and why like outreach teams are so like vital, like getting this education out onto the streets and getting the resources to people who need it, like encouraging people to never use the same syringe more than once, which is what as like harm reductionists or people who do outreach, we think of as like such an easy concept, but for individuals who are caught in the moment, caught in the grip, that's never such an easy concept. It's honestly sometimes the last thing they think about. Finding a dirty needle is like, for them, is a eureka moment where they're like, I found my next way of getting high. But just being able to provide the right resources for individuals, where they have the opportunity to use clean supplies so that they're not harming themselves or others around them, is a huge moment, especially with this Robert and Tiffany was saying, with this epidemic that we're left with, where people don't even know that it's in their supply. People don't know. So it's like helping them identify ways. I always like tell participants that I know that are actively using, it sucks. But nowadays, like the dealers, the distribution market, they're out for expanding their supply.
Most
They're
of the
gonna,
dealers don't even know. Most of the
yeah,
dealers don't even know what's in their supply.
yeah.
And
But
I'm
it's,
putting it in there.
they really don't care because that is only making their supply more.
Oh
So
yeah,
now
I'm
they
not
can
saying,
get, they
I'm not
get
saying whether
more
they,
of a buck.
I'm not
If
saying
you
whether
guys-
they
if you
care or
guys
not.
don't
I'm
know.
saying that they don't even know because they're getting it from somebody else. It's already
And
in
it's,
there.
and
You
I'm
know.
I do
saying
have a
it's
question.
true, but would they even care?
Probably not.
They don't. Like even with the people that are using, yes, we work for different agencies, and then we have the participants who will pay mine. But what about the people who are out in the street and don't care? They're gonna use it because there's people that, all right, this bag of heroin made this person die. They running to find that bag because
I'll
it
give you,
might not be me today, but I want to see what that's like.
So I
Tiffany,
have a
I'll give
question.
you
I have a
one.
question, guys. I have a question because as you guys shared a lot. If you ever listen to our podcast, I also operate as a listener too, because there's a lot going on, and I have some questions. And please help me out, because Bob, you said something. Actually, Tiffany, Joel, you guys all said similar things, and sometimes people get galvanized by numbers, right? You said a moment ago at the beginning, Robert, that 90% of drugs in Pennsylvania has some sort of xylazine.
Correct.
Not knowing the percentage. And Joel, you said it's here, but we don't know. But is there an idea or a number or of how much is in our city? Because we're New Yorkers, and I think one thing is New Yorkers, we don't care about anybody else. That's what we say, right? But what is it? What happens here? What's happening here in New York? Because
the CDC doesn't.
That's our neighbor.
The CDC doesn't have any positive numbers for New York as of yet on supply. The only numbers I could find was the overdoses that were contributed to it. So, like I said, 2 years ago, it was 2% contributed to xylazine, and so far up to this point, it's been 9% has been overdose deaths have been contributed to xylazine. But they don't have a positive number on the contamination of the drug supply yet.
So that's a what 400% increase.
Yeah.
Of overdose. Wow, that's
2 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah, in 2 years.
That's a lot.
So, and I think I love the fact that we're out there doing outreach, to the people that are out on the street and whatnot. But I'm trying to find the numbers, and I want to see if they break it down into how many first-time users were killed by xylazine. Because we all know that kids are they're going to try drugs. They're going to dabble, they all do, whether it's the smoking a joint or they're taking an ecstasy pill or whatnot. Those are the people I want to reach as well, to say, hey, this is not ecstasy anymore. You're not going to take this and go out and have a good time. You're going to take this and you're going to die. So I want to see if I can find those numbers.
How does a potential user find out what's in if in fact there's xylazine is there? Like, what is it that they do as a precautionary measure? Like,
There's no test strips for it.
There are test strips.
There are in Canada.
They're in Canada. Our FDA hasn't approved them yet. So apparently we can't get them here in the United States.
So that's like basically saying there are none yet.
Right.
I mean, and so alternatives or tips that we always try to guide participants in, when you're working with new batches, or if you picked up a new bag, something you're not familiar with, go slow, take a quarter of the bag versus going for the straight, full hit, start in increments, track those increments so that you kind of are becoming familiar with what a small amount of this has made you feel, different side effects. And those kind of strategies and harm reduction tips are easier said than actually done and performed.
I was just gonna say that, Joel, because when I was active, I'd have been like, yeah, okay, man, I want to slam the whole thing. It's
But, you know, like just giving people the option and just like the education behind why it is so important makes it easier to understand, you know, especially when you're dealing with supplies that you have no idea what's in them. These are, as of right now, because there's no, you know, like there are agencies out there and there are resources for like drug testing, but then we talk about like Xylazine's half-life and like everything that it has to do within the vet world, you know, like and how long it lasts in the body, it just becomes such a gray area because you know this substance has never been tested on people for very particular reasons. You know, the way it affects the central nervous system is actually what prohibits it from getting FDA approved. You know, they don't want people consuming this because of the negative impacts it can have. But you know, like the drug market isn't worried about that. The drug market doesn't care about that. It's all about maximizing on the current drug supply. And you know, like as Robert was saying, like what has been seen is the addition to xylazine could almost extend that effect of that euphoria for almost up to 8 hours, depending on what you're mixing it with. So, you know, from a consumer's perspective, from someone who's getting high, they would love to extend a euphoric state to 8 hours.
Yep.
The problem begins all those things that start to happen within those 8 hours. Like Tiffany said, like that shortness of breath, the heart rate, the high blood pressure, all those medical things that now get involved that cause worry for an overdose, that cause so many medical things. And the individual then becomes incapable of seeking help, incapable of calling 911. So if someone's using in a park underneath a bench behind a tree, they're
You're
going
not
to
gonna find
be
them.
underneath that bench, underneath that tree, behind the, you know, for hours without no
And
one
God
even
knows
knowing.
who's gonna find them.
Yeah.
Like I had a cousin who overdosed maybe a month and some change ago. Like as I've been reading this xylazine, I watched him literally die in my face. The naloxone didn't help. And the difficulty breathing, the dangerous low blood pressure, the slowness of the heart rate. I seen all of that happen as he was going. And now, you know, they did the autopsy results came back and it was xylazine and he was clean. And it just happened to be that we were having a cousin's reunion. He had just gotten his apartment, he was clean. He came in, he went to the store, then he came back really funny, didn't want us to look at his face and said he had to go. By the time he reached the front of the building, he was on the floor. Hard to breathe. You know, everything just happened in minutes. Just that quick. They couldn't even leave from in front of the building because they had to get him stable, which they couldn't.
So if somebody comes across someone either who they know or they don't know, and very often people, if they don't know someone, will just look the other way, which breaks my heart because they forget about the humanity that we're dealing with. We're not, you know, I'm in long-term recovery. I celebrated 25 years in October, and people forget that we're human, and that you know, we're not just addicts, we're people. And if you don't help a person, they're not going to make it. And there's a lot of people who just don't want to look that way. But if somebody does, like we're starting to see more people around our office, who I'm sure are probably, you know, on Xylazine because it's like nothing I've seen before, and I've been around. What should somebody do if suddenly there's someone in their life or they come across somebody and they're seeing whether it's these symptoms or just symptoms that really are frightening? What's the response we should be seeing to hopefully help somebody?
Educate yourself. Educate others, because it's like this is something that's new to everyone, you know, not just the user, not just the dealer, not just the family members, the doctors. This is something that, look at the sizes of these animals and their weight compared to a human, you know. And I, like the other day, I was watching a documentary on YouTube about it in Philly. The guy shot himself up in the arm, but it started coming out through the other side because of the holes in his skin. So I say educate yourself as much as you possibly can so you can know, because there is no cure, you know. I guess once you use it, this is something that your body has to go through, and maybe if you get lucky one time and it doesn't happen, hey, educate yourself, educate someone else, you know, try to slow down on what is it that you're doing, you know, because at the end of the day, we use because we're trying to mask something. We got a lot of idle time in our hands.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a list, you know, so I say just educate yourself, educate others until we can get these test strips, until we can get, you know, something like Narcan for it, you know, where we can help the person with their breathing, you know, and everything else. But I say education, exposing it, letting it be known, seen, even the grittiest pictures. I say show it,
let people see
because
what's really
nobody's
happening.
not going to understand it until
I
they
agree.
really go through it or see it.
So
I agree.
what can you do though if in the moment, if you meet, you know, you come across somebody in your life or in your neighborhood and they're exhibiting these symptoms, what should you do at that moment?
I say
Give
help
them,
track their breathing. You know, if they're like an individual, like if I encounter someone individual, I'll start like monitoring their breathing and to like check it, like timing it, see how like often they're breathing. If I can get a pulse, I'll try and track the pulse. You know, when we do outreach, we also go out with pulsometers. So if someone is like their breathing is low, we'll put on a pulsometer on them. We'll see their oxygen level for it. But you know, getting medical attention as fast as possible is also, you know, a great resource because they're going to have additional resources that, you know, an outreach team might not have or the average individual has. You know, when we talk about like resuscitators, breathing machines, like because you know we often recommend rescue breathing and you know breathing for the individual. Definitely, you know, like unless you're like trained in CPR, never like don't cross that threshold, like leave it over to somebody who's going to be like medically trained and like well versed in these things. But you know, even just monitoring and you know once let's say an EMT arrives, being able to have that conversation like I've been monitoring them for 5 minutes and this is how many like breaths they've taken in like the past minute or that I've been able to see, you know, just that even that little bit of information is crucial to what they're going to do thereafter and the care they're going to provide for the individual.
And also just because we may assume that they're using xylazine, if they're unresponsive, give them Narcan. You know, I've spoken to a couple of people already and they're, you know, saying, well, should we use the Narcan if we know that? Yes, use the Narcan because you'll get rid of that aspect of it. You'll get rid of the fentanyl or the heroin aspect of it. And now the body's just dealing with the xylazine. So don't be afraid to use your Narcan. Use your Narcan, call 911, you know, and like you said, monitor, do rescue breaths if you have to, you know, and get CPR trained, really. It's not that hard anymore. You know, they have breathless CPR now, you know, breathless CPR, you know, get trained.
This is great information because I think people really are feeling helpless. And I know that Chevar is going to ask a question because I saw him unmute. So go ahead, Chevar.
No, because not because you guys are talking, and I agree. We agree with what I'm speaking. So I agree with everything you guys are saying as far as like sharing and educating, what have you. What is there, or if there is a conversation amongst that community who uses, like what does that look like? Because I know, and the reason why I asked that, and I'm gonna explain why really quickly. I know we said that some people are looking for that high, you know, and or some people aren't. The reason I asked that because like I shared with Ronni the other day, and I think I said it prior to you guys coming on. I watched the documentary also, and I'm like, wow, this is mind blowing, you know, and it's fairly a young a drug to come in and take over like tremendously. And I'm walking into the office the following day after I see this video and read all the data that was sent to me. And these two gentlemen who like Ronni said, in our neighborhood we have a lot of people who are users these two gentlemen were talking, and one of them turns to the other, he goes, dude, don't do it. Don't mix those two together. He was really adamant about don't do it, because I didn't know what he was talking about. And I was going to ask, but I didn't want to invade their privacy because, that's their time to talk. That's people's time to talk. But just hearing this gentleman tell this other gentleman, do not mix those two together, it is fatal. Him saying that, like, is there conversation like that? Like, is there a fear? Or is the high so great, the fear is canceled?
I get both. When I go to outreach, I get both. Like, there was a woman who was crying because she couldn't understand what was going on. And then I asked her, did she know what Xylazine is, or Tranq, which is what they call it? And she said no. So I started explaining to her what it is and, what does it do? And she was like, I need to go. Like, it was like something like, you kidding me? This is what they're doing to us today?
Yep.
Like, and it emotionally breaks you down, because not only is this deteriorating your body, but let's think about what it's doing to your brain, period, and your emotions, because you have to live with this. You have to look at it. You have to see it. And if, let's say this woman has children, kids ask the darnest things. And a lot of these children don't have hair on. They're going to ask you what an adult won't ask you, So it's how am I supposed to, now the mental health kicks in. Now let's talk about the mental health part of it, because now I have to live with this. I don't know if they're going to cut off my arm. I don't know if I'm going to die. I still need to use. So now they're trying to weigh out their options, because if I don't use, I'm going to get sick. And if I do use now, it's a possibility that I'm gonna have holes all over my body. I'm gonna look like the Night of the Living Dead, because it makes me think, like, those movies, of all those zombie movies. Was it something the government was trying to tell us, at some point? Because now it's becoming a reality. As I see more and more of these people with the wounds, it's like, how are you still alive? Because you can see right to their bone.
Yeah.
So you have the people that are weighing out the options, like, nah, I ain't going to do it. I don't even want to use no more. But to me, where I'm at the Samaritan on 148th, it's the people that have been using for years that refuse now not to use. Like, I'm not using that. That's, like Robert said, that's not even heroin.
Yeah.
So you have those people that have been using for years now no longer want to use. But then you have the people that are coming into this now that are addicted to the fentanyl and getting addicted to the xylazine. So they don't want nothing but that.
That actually happened to me a couple of days ago. This woman, Stacy, that I know on the street, longtime user, and we used to use together when we were on the street. And I've been following her and tracking her while now that I'm in the program and trying to help her on the other end. Ran into her a couple of days ago, and she was actively seeking Tranq, and she was asking me if I knew where I could get it. I was like, Stacey, I don't know. I was like, but you do realize what this is going to do to you? I said, this is going to kill you. She lifted up her pant leg, and her whole bottom of her leg was almost
Black.
gone. Good. Bone right down to the bone. She's like, Bob, I'm going to die anyway.
Yeah, that's how they feel.
So I don't care. I want it.
That's exactly what they say. And it's hurtful just to hear. That hear and see it, it's hurtful.
Yeah, no, that hit home. That really did. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, these are, but you're being so honest and so real, and people need to hear this because they don't believe a lot of times what's being said. My question to you is, you see so much. It's a hard world. We know it's a hard world. I wouldn't want to be growing up in this today, I'll be honest. And it's really a hard world to live in. How do you take care of you after you've been seeing this and talking to people and watching people die and doing the work? You're doing the work, I feel, of angels, and you are earthbound angels, every one of you. And but it must wear on you. So what do you do? How do you get past that for you?
Me personally, I grew up around it. So it's like, are we gonna make a change or are we gonna leave it like that? Emotionally, sometimes it can like wear on me, like it can be heavy, but sometimes I just want to scream you know, these gentlemen here, we're part of like a peer supervision, like we have a every 2-week meeting. So I constantly say, hey, we have to expose this thing because I'm not going to sit down about it. I'm sorry. That could be my mother, that could be my brother, that could be my niece, my nephew. It could be anybody in my family. It could have been my father. My father was a big heroin addict. Okay. And it could have been him, but he died in 2010. So I say when I set out to do things, I look at it like it can be me. It can be my family members. So I'm going to go all the way hard. If I got to yell and, you know, because they call me ratchet because I'm loud and, you know, I'd rather be that because that's me. But I get the point across. And they also see that she's one of us. She's not going to tell us something or show us something that's not going to be wrong. Now I'm going to show you and I'm going to tell you and I'm going to be very adamant. I'm not going to soft speak to you. No, this is your life or your death. It's now or never.
Yeah.
You know, we got to get this thing moving and grooving and up out of here. And how are we going to do that? By all sticking together and opening our mouths about it.
Yeah. And you're right, Ronnie. It does take a toll on you. It does. I speak to my team here a lot, you know, my peers here and like, you know, Tiffany said that the peer supervision and whatnot, you know, I luckily I have a wife who understands all of this, you know, my driving goal is my kids and now my grandkids, you know, I want to change the world for them, you know, so that's what keeps me going. Every time I feel down and beat up with all of this going on, I'm like, you know what? No, I got to keep pushing forward. I got to change the world for them, you know, and for all the other kids out there, you know, I don't want them growing up in this shit.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to like self-care, boundaries, creating healthy boundaries for yourself and what that means, you know, where it's like, you know, we'll create like outreach plans like for the day at the agency I'm at, and sometimes we'll split them in two different like sections versus having like a team be on outreach for like 3 to 4 hours. You know, after the first hour you're overwhelmed. You know, so sometimes you need to take that break. You need to sit down. You need to get some food. You need to some time to yourself. And like, you know, I'll have like outreach workers or like volunteers who are eager to like jump back in. And I'm like, no, this time for you is crucial, you know, because if you're depleted, if you're exhausted, how are you going to continue to provide like exceptional services to that person on like your third or fourth hour? You know, then they're going to be getting the worst end of like the services. So, you know, it's like really taking that into account. And then, you know, like often like because we're in the lower part of Manhattan, so we'll walk to like the parks that we service the most, which are like Tompkins Square Park and Washington Square Park. And you know, like that walk back to the site or that bus ride back to the site is like time for us to talk. You know, it's time for us, like, was there anything that was like you were surprised to see, or was there anything that someone said to you that you were surprised to hear? Why were you surprised to hear it? You know, like how did it make you feel? Like what can we do to make sure that it doesn't make you feel that way again? You know, so understanding the different services that, you know, even our own staff and peers need, you know, to be able to provide and to continue to provide those resources. You know, for some individuals, it's in like until they experience a scenario, they don't know that like if something might be necessarily triggering or might not be something they're comfortable doing. And you know, creating up like an atmosphere and a place where everyone can feel comfortable to voice that versus like, oh, I don't want it to seem like I'm a bad outreach worker, I'm a bad harm reductionist if I don't feel comfortable, you know, talking to somebody about wound care, or like somebody showing and exposing me their wound, like it causes me to freeze up. You know, those are conversations that need to be had amongst a peer team, because you know it's about like delegating the person who's going to be most appropriate, most fit, or feels comfortable enough to handle that, and you know, getting to that other individual to a point where they might at one point feel comfortable enough, or again respecting their boundaries if they're saying that's too much for me to do or too much for me to handle, understanding that that's okay, and finding another area in outreach or you know, like harm reduction education that they will excel in.
I'm ready to put on my boots and my war gear and go outside. I don't want to cold call nobody. I want to be in the war with them. Let's get it.
So guys, this is an amazing conversation that will continue. It's not going to stop. We have another episode coming up with you guys really soon. But if not you guys, with other team members. But like we said at the beginning, we were saying throughout this entire episode, and we continue to say we're all human, right? So we want to change up this last question a little bit different to remind people who we're all human. We all have a past in different shapes or form. Right. So I want you guys to think back to when you were 7 years old, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, however, whatever age you can remember that far back. And when your teacher, parents, whomever, or guardians, whoever asked you when you were younger, what do you want to be when you get older?
I said rich.
It
don't gotta be in money.
Hold on. Tiffany, you just said you wanted to be, when you were that 7-year-old young person, you just wanted to be rich.
My mother was a community social worker, right? Okay. Within this area too. She was on Cypress Avenue. And one day she told me that one day she was coming out of work. My dad used to pick her up. My mother and my father were two of the opposite. My father was a street guy. He did construction to make his money look clean. And my mother was a community social worker trying to clean that up, you know. And one time she came out, my father used to pick her up, came out, and she said she got in the car, and I said, I don't want to be like you when I get older. And she was like, why? I said, because you always tired and you never got money. And daddy always got money and I want to be just like him. So my teenage life, I lived that life. My addiction was selling drugs. You know, that was my addiction. I did 10 years in federal prison. My father ended up becoming a heroin addict. I took care of him. It didn't matter what he did. My father died in 2010. That's when I decided to change my life. And here I am today at my first job ever at Samaritan Village, going to be 2 years.
And congratulations to you. Guess what, Tiffany? You are rich because you're here.
Yeah, and I'm rich. The so knowledge that I get.
Not financially rich, but with your life and what you're doing to change the community, that is rich. That is definitely wealthy. Rich. So you, unlike myself, I wanted to be a NASCAR driver. It didn't happen. So that I didn't get my dream, but you reached your dream. Robert, Bob, you want to share what you when you were that young person?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
I was always big into it. My parents had these medical encyclopedias. I don't know why they had them, but they had them. They were these small little books, and Tiffany, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
mom had them. Yeah. I don't know why they had them, but I would constantly flip through the pages and read them, and you know, and I always said I wanted to be a doctor, you know. Never got to the MD, but I became a paramedic.
That's right.
You know, and now I'm in another healthcare field. So your
knowledge is amazing, Robert.
Thank you. So
you're the hood doctor, though.
That's
How
it.
about that?
That's it. Down and dirty.
Joel, so, I'm sorry, Bob. You were still talking. I apologize.
No. So I kind of lived up to my dream, you know.
Joel, what was yours? I hope you lived up to yours also.
It was a little bit of a mix of like a teacher or like some sort of like community work for sure. It's like, you know, like I grew up in a very like poor neighborhood, so I understand the need for additional resources and, you know, the gap that there was for individuals to receive those resources. So anything that I could do that could help lessen that gap and connect people to those resources was definitely somewhere where I wanted to be.
And I do want to say that's amazing that you guys are all able to achieve your dreams that you had as young people. I mean, it might not be the exact dream, but it's the dream adjacent. You know, me being a NASCAR driver or a firefighter didn't happen. I was afraid of fire. And I live in New York City. There's no cars to drive. We can do it fast, but you go to jail.
And I wanted to be a rock star, so I haven't given
Why
up.
do you are a rock
You
star?
are a
Well,
rock star.
No, I mean, using my musical talents, but I haven't given up. I'll be a geriatric one. But we want to thank you so much. I mean, this just flew by. We definitely are going to continue the conversation. Like we said, we want to do as many podcasts as we can do about this because people need this information. It's not a one and done deal. But we want to thank you again for coming. We'll definitely hopefully get it to you soon so you can share it far and wide, and we're going to get the word out. And thank you for helping us do that today. Chevar and I are going to stick around, and we're just going to close out the show. But thank you again for coming. You just have really inspired us.
Thank you for
I
having
wanna,
us. Thank
yeah, I
you.
want to thank you and Chevar for giving us this platform. You know, it just can reach a lot more people than we're able to do now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll keep it going. You know, that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
to inform, educate, and hopefully save some lives.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you all for
One
what you
love,
do.
everyone.
Love back at you. Thank you for coming. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. That's the word. That is the word. That is the word.
Yeah, I don't think we can add anything additional. It's all been said. It's just I know I need to process. Uh,
No, you and me both.
but we will make sure that we have information. We'll have in the description, and we'll make sure they're across the screen. You'll get some information about how you can connect with people and get their contact information and who to call for help. So Chevar, it's good to be back. And till the next time.
Nothing changes, so we change nothing.
And we're changing it today. Take care.